Hey there, do you like puzzle solving? Do you have an interest in infrastructure? Or perhaps even urban exploration? Or maybe you like adventure games with a hint of horror to them? I'm rather fond of all those things. Some of the most memorable moments to me in games I've played have been solving puzzles. You can imagine, I was quite a huge fan of the Portal series for really leaning into the puzzle side of things while still feeling adventurous. Urban exploration is something that I also dabble with occasionally, since I love infrastructure and natural decay. To me, it's thrilling to see what happens to stuff that gets left behind. And as a kid, I loved this show called Life After People. It was a rather creepy show about what would happen to our infrastructure if it was all left abandoned. And I always used to think, what if there was a game like Life After People, where you had to avoid falling victim to the architecture around you, while incorporating puzzles to help navigate the broken down buildings, and maybe with the feeling that you're not alone. If the idea intrigues you, then good news. I have the perfect game for you. Allow me to take you through the crumbling infrastructure of INFRA. INFRA is a game like no other. It's an adventure game made by Loist Interactive, released back in 2016. Set in a beautiful Scandinavian city called Stallberg, it chronicles a civil engineer working for the city named Mark, a smart, somewhat sarcastic man who's been tasked with inspecting the infrastructure around this lovely city.
I have a feeling we might have a long day ahead of us, so we better start early.
So which building did you accidentally demolish this time?
Sounds simple, right?
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the man? Get your on, boy.
Well, that's where you're wrong. Stallberg's beauty is only surface level, but peel back the layers, and you'll find so much rot that it's a miracle it's even still functional. The city is unfortunately the site of corruption that's been going on for decades, leaving much of the city without proper maintenance. And that's not even covering the plot that's led to many of the companies being affected, resulting in tons of job losses. Much of this information can be uncovered in old newspapers, notes, and even audio tapes left behind. It's clear that the city's in trouble. But after years of neglect, eventually something has got to give, and everyone knows that. And it just so happens that the day you're tasked with a field day is when things finally start to go awry.
The ceiling is coming down. I have to get these doors open.
What started out as a simple job documenting the condition of a dam and the city's water tunnels quickly becomes a mission to get back to your office down in the city as a domino effect starts taking down the city's infrastructure. Speaking of which, Stallberg itself isn't just a generic place with no story behind it. It's a city with tons of history that can be uncovered by finding notes left behind by various people through the years. There's even an interactive map made by the developers up on Stallberg.net where you can see the layout of the entire city and key locations from the game. You can even overlay the in-game maps to see where they all are in the city and the path you take through the game. You could tell just by exploring the world that the developers really cared about making this city feel lifelike. And wherever it's appropriate, you can find people in cars going about their daily lives, not having a clue about what's going on behind the scenes as you do. But besides the city, the game's world in general feels very well crafted. Despite running on the nearly 20-year-old Source engine, this is a very impressive looking game. And as someone who has experience making maps for the Source engine, I could tell a lot of effort was put into designing the environment. They really went the extra mile to add extra touches like out-of-bounds room, convincing foliage, and distant scenery to make it feel believable, instead of feeling like the kind of game where it's obvious you're being railroaded because there are no other paths. The only nitpick I really have with the level design is how much time you spend underground away from the sunlight. This is remedied in later chapters, but expect around 2/3 of the game to be spent underground. I think if there were more outdoor sections, the level design would have felt much fresher, but that doesn't mean the levels themselves are bad looking at all. All of the models and texture work are high quality and consistent in the art style. There's nothing that feels out of place in that regard. And the lighting is pretty nice too, though the HDR can be a bit intense in certain sections. especially indoor levels where you can see through the roofs. But moving on to the gameplay, this game isn't for everyone. If you love puzzle games that really make you think and you don't mind spending a while on them, or if you're a fan of those 90s point-and-click adventure games with those very creative puzzles, then this game will be an absolute treat for you in the gameplay department, because those types of games are exactly what INFRA reminded me of. While if that isn't exactly your style, you might prefer to stick to a let's play of the game. Puzzles are rarely spelled out for you with a few exceptions, so you need to find clues around the map itself to try to piece them together to make progress. You'll typically find notes hanging around, hinting at what needs to be done, but nothing close to an outright guide. It's up to you to figure out what exactly needs to be done. Some puzzles can be figured out in minutes if you have a careful eye. Some will require a lot of thinking on your part, and some were so complicated that it took me hours to figure it out. I'd say the main issue I have with the puzzles isn't the difficulty, but rather the lack of a specific goal. Oftentimes you'll enter an area that needs to have repair work done by you so you can progress, but you're often left wondering what will allow that to happen. For instance, early on in the game, you'll come across a water treatment plant. You need to get it up and running again to open the exit door. But the door in question isn't exactly hinted at, obviously, and so even after fixing the entire facility, I was confused for a while trying to find the exit. This happens with quite a few puzzle areas in the game, but I wouldn't consider it to be too big of an issue to handle. Something that might actually put players off from this game would have to be the atmosphere. I'm not trying to say the atmosphere is bad at all. I'd say this game is the gold standard for how to do rundown environments right, but I'd be lying if I said this game were relaxed. Quite the opposite. While it can be relaxing at parts, I'd say that overall, this game is actually quite scary. Being alone in these crumbling facilities is creepy enough already, but the amazing sound design of the game really adds to it. The sounds alone can really make you feel uncomfortable with staying in one place for too long. And the dark visuals of certain places really help with making the player feel that they're being watched. Yet despite that, this game doesn't have traditional enemies like many others would, but don't be fooled. You're not safe just because of that. In this game, it's the environment that's your enemy. Every location you visit has effectively become a death trap in one way or another due to aging, and you can easily be taken out by poisonous gases, crumbling ceilings, electricity, water, and many other hazards that have come to be due to a lack of maintenance. And some of the other visuals, while not dangerous, can be very disturbing at times. All this is to say that while this game isn't a full-on horror game, it can be very unsettling at times, so do keep that in mind. However, if you have any experience with the horror genre, you should be pretty well okay. Just don't enter this door in the Bergman tunnels. Please heed my warning. On a lighter note, the controls of this game are somewhat simple, but very satisfying to use. You can move around with your standard WASD keys, and you can run, jump, and crouch with ease. The game actually has assisted climbing when trying to jump onto things like crates and barrels, which has no business being as satisfying as it is to use. You'll be able to take pictures of the pieces of infrastructure that are in critical condition. The city has only gotten this bad because of a corruption scandal that you'll slowly begin to uncover as you look for clues along your journey. Uncover enough evidence, and you can expose what's really going on behind the scenes. Just get ready to hear Mark comment a lot about the condition of things.
Well, that's a good start.
The character of Mark himself provides enjoyable commentary throughout the game and will occasionally talk with his boss back at the office that sent him. Take a picture of something really special, and he'll have something quite unique to say about it. Some say his voice acting is the best, but I think he sounds pretty well, with a pleasantly authentic Scandinavian accent that fits the setting quite well, though his actor could surely benefit from practicing his emotional range. His shouting sounds more like mild inconvenience. But besides uncovering the mysteries of Stallberg, I'd argue that the main fun comes from exploring the beautiful environments of this game, and the feeling of satisfaction that comes from finally solving a tricky puzzle. And believe me, that'll come quite often. Something that really blew me away was how your actions in older levels can impact the game way further on. Without spoiling anything, depending on how much you choose to interact with the maps, that'll open up more paths for you to take in later levels. And it's that interactivity that really makes these maps feel real. You can play around with so many things, even things that don't really affect your progress, or might even hinder it. There's so much to do here, and if you explore enough, You may even find optional levels that aren't on the main path. I found a few in my second playthrough that I had no idea even existed when I first played this game. You're bound to find something new each time you give this game a playthrough, and when you do play this game, you'll be entertained for quite a while. This game is quite long, which I appreciate quite a bit. It took me about 16 hours in total playtime to beat it on my first playthrough, but I'm sure it'll vary quite a bit depending on how thoroughly you play the game. But for a rough estimate, I'd say it's about as long as Half-Life 2, which funnily enough runs on the same engine. The developers of INFRA have done a masterful job of making this game, and it's clear to me that they really put their hearts into it, which is why it's such a shame to me that this game is relatively obscure on the internet, it seems. The team at Loist Interactive has seemingly had a decent amount of success with this game, to the point that they're currently working on an exciting new DLC for this game called Whiprock, where Mark is sent to investigate the happenings of a high-security prison island. That sure reminds me of two games that I love. But when it releases, I hope it will bring more attention to this amazing game. It's understandably not a game that everyone can get into, but it's one that I think deserves more attention than it currently gets. So if you haven't played this game, and you like what you've heard here, I'd strongly recommend getting it. The developers are surely deserving of the support. There's adventure and mystery to be found in the decay underside of Stulberg, and it's waiting for you. Thanks for watching!